Welcome back, everyone, to Tales of Fail. We are once again here with Doctor Hedoth. You've been upgraded from Uncle the Doctor, Uncle Hedoth, here to tell us more tales of fail from around the tabletop role-playing table. How are you, Hedoth?
I'm doing well, and I'm glad to see that you've acknowledged my new title as doctor. I got a doctorate in suffering, and I'm here to tell you the tales of how I got said doctorate.
Fantastic. So, what is the tale for today?
So this next one is rather special and close to my heart, just because it's so simple and yet so misinformed. So Bimini is anime.
Okay.
And he does enjoy that Japanese culture and the Japanese history, but unfortunately he like so many others have been misinformed about what samurai are about.
Right. Like,
Samurai were dedicated soldiers and warriors, and they served their lords faithfully and to the death if needed. But what people seem to not understand is that they didn't just kill themselves because reasons. They usually had a good reason to do it, or it was a very scenario. And today's bullet point is attack the god to defend his samurai honor.
oh yeah, like that is like when it comes to like samurai stories that just don't make any sense. Like the big thing that comes to mind is like Oda Nobunaga. Like this one guy is like, nope, the enemy's in the temple, and starts burning down this temple where he and his personal guards are, and he and his personal guards just kill themselves. And I always wondered, why'd they do that? But at no point did they ever charge a god for samurai honor.
Yeah, it was Mitsuhide Akichi, by the way.
Thank you.
But anyway, so a little bit of a backstory on this one, and I get why Benny was so gung ho about defeating this entity, because at the time we didn't know that it was a god, and some bad things happened, and then later on we found out that it was a god, and Ben had to avenge himself.
And then he understood
So
exactly why he had died so fast.
so this was in what was called Solmec, which was a 3.5 system. And the closest thing I can equate it to is an anime called Escaflowne, where you have these giant mechs that are operated sort of like steampunky, but more magic punk.
Right.
They run on various forms of magic and power, and depending on what nation you were from, sort of depended on the theme of your mech. And it was pretty cool. And the first session, there was this Jericho, which was very reminiscent of Japan, and it had been basically taken over by Techno Vikings.
Oh shit! They're gonna dance all over
Garrus.
your parade.
Yeah, no, they just showed up and they're just like, "You can't handle us. This country can't handle us." And the Kurikins were just like, "We cannot handle this."
Oh no.
So they called in a couple of other nations because there was this tentative alliance in this area where you had an Egyptian culture, a German culture, and what was the other one? A Russian culture, all in relatively close proximity around this one place. And if the Techno Vikings got Kiriko, then they had a landing point and a staging area, from which they could attack all of us.
Right. So
So
that's
we
no
all
bueno.
Yeah. So we all answered the call and got in our mechs and we're like, we know what? We're storming this beach. It's our beach. You can't take our beach. Get
You
off
can't
our beach.
you can't take it. It belongs to us.
Yeah. So we initially established a beachhead so we could then, you know, go through our little operation. And what it came down to was we needed to do a stealth op to get to the main baddie and basically just take him out, cut off the head of the snake, and hopefully the rest will die with it.
Right. All right. This makes sense.
So we all ended up dressing like geisha, and we were the prettiest ragtag group of geisha that you ever did see.
Classic.
Like there were animal people in this world, and I was playing a Rakshasa, Tiger Man, and Bimmy was a crow man, and I forgot what else other people were playing. I think one of them was a jackal because he came from the. Uh,
The Egyptian
and
place.
this wasn't a furry game. It just sort of all ended up
It
working this
it
way.
just
And
ended
I
up
have a
happening.
for Rakshasa because Rakshasa are diabolical and twisted and delicious.
So we
You
got
know,
furry
they
people.
are the level of decadent that they go to is fantastic, and there is a another Bimmy moment that I'll talk about later in the future where I was playing Rakshasa, and I'll get into them more on.
Oh boy.
So anyway,
So we got furry
we were in
people,
this.
flowing robes, stuffed shirts. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, we're about to make somebody's day, and by make their day, we mean stab them to death a lot.
Right.
Stab them until they're dead.
Good policy.
We successfully get in there, and we are standing in front of the head honcho of this little invasion group. Decides that he's just going to charge, just take this guy out, reclaim his homeland and end it, which was not the plan.
Oh.
So he then proceeds to run up to him, draw his sword, and then promptly get choked like a bitch, and then cinematically disemboweled
Oh.
because we weren't supposed to fight this guy
Right.
fucking quick because he was a badass.
Oh.
Bimmy is on the ground doing his best to hold his intestines in, and the baddie kind of looks at us and says, "This isn't over. This is just the beginning," and then sort of disappears.
All right.
So we
Okay.
put Bimmy's guts back in his crow body, and the story continues on, and we become more powerful. Our mechs get more interesting and developed. And it eventually reaches a point where the mechs kind of bond with you. So, like,
Right.
when they take damage, you take damage,
Okay.
but they also heal on their own.
Interesting. So you could conceivably have a
And
pilot who dies before his mech takes enough damage to get incapacitated.
sort of, like, if it was one of those things that if the mech died, the pilot would actually live,
Right.
but they would lose, like, 20 years off of their life.
Okay. Got it. Don't
Rebuild it
don't
when it's dead. You gotta, it's your baby. It's a part of you. It's like a familiar.
right. No, don't let that happen.
Yeah, that's bad time. You don't want your mech to go down because otherwise your career and your life may very well be over. And likewise, if the pilot dies, the mech is still operational. I think we're quite attuned to another pilot the same way that it attuned to you.
Right.
So these things are special.
Right.
So let's see. Yeah, so I mean, I can't blame Bimmy for immediately getting disemboweled. It was a cinematic sort of thing, but again,
Right.
it wasn't part of the plan. I was clearly a badass.
Right. So like he's breaking the plan, but like I can understand why he's breaking the plan, and like this is like total cinematic moment. We have entered the cutscene. He
Mm-hmm.
rips open your chest cavity, and they put you back together. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. That's not his
we
fault.
managed to patch him back up.
Yeah.
But anyway, so time goes on. We get more badass. We find out what's going on, and we find out what like Garrick's, the Techno Vikings. I guess they're being controlled by shapeshifters,
Oh.
and the shapeshifters are doing their damnedest to kind of take over the world and do it in a very subtle we control this race but they don't know it kind of way.
Interesting.
And we go through a number of different trials, and eventually Sea Australia shows up, or Boat Australia, I should say.
It's all
Was
Australia
run.
on boats.
I forgot what they were. They were like hawk people or falcon people or something, and they just existed on these gigantic boats in this like one massive ship that was just kind of like their primary capital. And then you had a bunch of little satellite ships that were either their own independent sort of little city states, or they were part of the military proper.
Interesting.
At flamethrowers, so we were immediately on board with them joining the fight.
Awesome.
Flamethrowers. Let's give the power of the fireball to some random asshole and see how that works out.
And see how it works out. It varies given the
from
circumstances,
person to
but
person.
still, right?
So anyway, we finally figure out what in the hell is going on. We learn that they are like there's a handful of gods that are sort of enacting this, and they're malevolent gods. One of them, Vecna, the god of magic and evil, and he had his fingers in all kinds of things. And then there was another one. I want to say it was like Weejas or something. But anyway, so
There is some
we
bad
actually get some gods
mojo
on our
going
side.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, like we learn that gods are actually getting involved, and then good gods show up, and they're like, yeah, okay, so they're interfering with the mortal world, so that gives us authority to interfere with the mortal world, and we're going to help you out. And we got to see a procession of gods walk by us, and we just sort of stood there in awe because we weren't important yet.
I like the
Yeah.
way you say
So
that. We're
anyway,
not important yet.
So come down to the end of the game. And this is actually one of those campaigns that finished, which is kind of
Nice.
amazing because I've only been in like 2 of those. Because we've either ended up all dying before then, or they, the game sort of peters out as they tend to do.
The GM gives up.
And
It's game over.
yeah, either that or the players just start losing interest and they start dropping off.
Yep.
But anyway, so we find out that we need to priestesses to the temples so that they can perform the rituals to send the gods back.
Okay, I can dig it.
Yeah. We each get assigned a priestess, and we are told to go in there and defend them until the ritual is complete. Now, I want to point out that this is one of those scenarios where defeating the opponent is not an option. A holdout mission.
About to say it's not that it's not necessarily not an option, but it's not the goal. You don't need to defeat your opponent to win this battle.
Yeah, and furthermore, it's the idea that you're not gonna win. You're gonna if you're lucky, you'll survive. Like
Right.
you're not gonna kick ass. You're gonna get your ass kicked.
Right.
So, let's see, the first priestess, does her thing relatively quickly because our GM was rolling randomly to see how quickly they would complete the ceremony. And the first one, I believe, went off without a hitch.
Cool. Probably not the best way to go about it, but whatever.
Yeah. So I got locked in a pagoda with Vecna.
Oh shit.
And I was a wizard, I believe. So here I am, god of evil and magic, and I'm in my mech, which the mechs give you a lot of backbone. Like we didn't stand a chance against the gods, but we could at least hold out for a while.
Right.
They couldn't just immediately smite us because of it.
Right.
So I'm doing my best to hold this damn thing off, and Vecna's just like, "Oh, you're a wizard. Well, I guess I'm just gonna have to rave enfeeblement." So I go from being this arcane caster, which I'm fairly brilliant. I've come up with all sorts of things. I even invented a few things for the mechs, and I get reduced to a flailing kitten.
Oh, feeble mind. 1 to
wisdom.
all of your mental scores get turned to 1, right?
Yeah. So here I am, just flailing about in this cockpit, and I am a simple kitten that doesn't understand things, but there's this thing attacking me, and if I slam on buttons, things happen, so that works, right?
Oh no!
So here I am, just button mashing, and actually not doing a terrible job. I invented these things called tick mines, like rockets than anything, but the idea was that they would hit the target and then burrow into the mech and then explode, hopefully killing the pilot.
Oh, interesting.
They were meant to do damage against mechs, but if they happen to hit the cockpit and it's like an anti-tank weapon used on a average Joe person. Like they're not going to survive. Even if it's a glancing blow, they're going to get torn apart.
Right. But this is a god, so he can take some damage. But still, it's bad for him.
Yeah, so I launched a little cluster of those into Vecna's face, and he was some kind of sore about that. And he then proceeded to torture me slowly, which let the goddess, which saved my ass because he got sucked back into the ethereal planes of whatever.
Right.
He is currently flying around outside, doing his best to keep watch.
Right.
And he sees the guy that disemboweled him sitting on top of this obelisk. And he's like, I'm gonna mech, you're on foot, I'm gonna ruin your day. He's up to him. And he sees this guy transform into one of the violet blooded, which are the shapeshifters. No. He transforms into Nerul.
Right. The god of death.
And he's just sitting there with his scythe, looking up at him, and he just gives him a "don't even try it" look. Like, it's clear that that's not going to go well for Bimmy.
Right.
Bimmy, again, he's not having any of it, and he charges for samurai honor.
For samurai honor.
Yeah, so he charges, and Nerul just kind of holds up his hand, and like when the blade's like a foot away or something, or maybe closer, time stops. It just stops. Bimmy is aware of everything that's going on currently, and he watches Nerul just sort of get up and float through the air, and he comes up and touches the mech. And the mech just sort of begins to rust, fall apart, and then explode. And hurtled to the ground, and he's able to use his wings a little bit to control his fall so he doesn't die because terminal velocity.
Right.
We had a house rule in the game that, body can survive terminal velocity, maybe, but your brain only has one hit point. And if you hit the ground at terminal velocity, your brain takes that damage as well, and you're fucked.
Right.
Because, it doesn't make sense that you should be like, a level 10 fighter and be able to survive falling at terminal velocity.
Right. Your brain, you will die from the concussion no matter what. Keep featherfall potions and wands and rings around, or carry around a fucking hang glider in your bag of holding. You're going to have the time to dig it out.
So Bimmy hits the ground, and Nerul flies down to him, and Bimmy just sort of rolls over at this point because, he was just inside. He was at the epicenter of an explosion, and he managed to survive. And Nerul just kind of looks down at him and tells him that was a really foolish thing to do. Bimmy reaches up with one of his claws and flips off the god of death.
What?
And
Why?
Nerul is just like, that's really cute. Now. And he just sort of casually swings the scythe and lops off his hand. And Bimmy's still being defiant, and he's like, nope, fuck you, Nerul. And he raises up his other hand. And Nerul's just like, if you just want to keep playing this game, we can do that. Like, I'm just going to take that one now, and lop off it goes. Like, Bimmy is on the ground, bleeding out, and he's
got no hands.
Confronting the god of death. That's, taken both of his hands, his mech, and presumably about to be his life. And he actually lucks out, and we complete the ritual shortly after Nerul takes his second hand. So we send the gods back to where they belong. Had to have a conversation with Bimmy about samurai and what they are and how they work. Because in history, samurai, well, in popular culture, again, samurai are portrayed as these fearless warriors that will rush into anything and honor and whatnot. But if you actually look at history, the samurai were pretty goddamn clever, and they weren't afraid. They weren't above superior foe, especially if they knew they were going to lose.
Right.
Because unless there's a reason for it, there's no point in going into a losing battle. Like if you look at the enemy and you look at your forces and you go, we're all gonna die. Like, that's a dishonorable action, and that's a really stupid thing to do. But if you have, like, hey, we need to buy somebody time, so we're going to hold off this force, we're probably all going to die, but our objective is to hold them off as long as possible. That's an honorable action.
Right. And I mean, there's the, if you're cornered, you fight your hardest, so maybe you'll live, but, like,
And yeah,
The
it's that adage of fight like you expect to die and you'll live, fight like you want to live and you're gonna die.
right. But like this mission is clearly like to play keep away with this enemy no matter what.
Yeah,
And
like it, engage them if you absolutely have to, but if not, like harass and run.
it's been proven that like so presumably the Nerul is the character who disemboweled Bimmy earlier on in the campaign, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
no, the figure that showed up on the obelisk was the guy that disemboweled him, but he turned into Nerul, and it's like, you know what? And I know this, and you don't really want to seem to fight, so I'm gonna stay up here and do my job and just keep an eye on you and engage you if I need to.
Right, but
That
instead
was
he cites generic samurai honor and makes a very poor decision. I do believe this falls under
interesting because we got an
insufficient
epilogue at
reasoning.
the end, and Bimmy was kind of perturbed because his epilogue didn't go well, and our GM was explaining to him that no, you can't grow your hands back because they were taken by the god of death. He claimed them,
Right.
and it by losing both of his hands, he effectively ended his career as a samurai. He didn't have his soul mech anymore, and the Tengu, I think it was the Crow people. They didn't live very long anyway. They had like an average lifespan of like 40 years or 30 years or something.
Okay.
So he was already in his 20s, I think. So his life was actually going to be coming to an end relatively soon because of that. And everybody else managed to make it out beaten to shit, but otherwise okay. Our own little backstories and relatively interesting things that happened to us, but it was just one of those things that we had to sit Bimmy down and explain to him, like, why this generic sort of got him into that situation, and he thought that maybe he could take the god of death because some players think that if you throw something at them, the GM is expecting you to fight it and has made it so that you can in fact defeat it.
No.
When in reality, the GMs don't always do that.
No. I have
To enter into a fight, and you're supposed to realize that you can't take that.
It's time to run away. It's time to think of a better plan. It's time to
Yeah,
get some help.
It's like, you know what? If I leave now and come back, I can maybe take you at a later date, but right now it's just not going to happen. But anyway, so that was this tale of fail.
Thank you very much for this tale of fail, Hedoth. What's next?
And we have some interesting ones coming up.
But what's next, Hedoth? What's next? Inquiring minds want to know.
Okay. So the next bullet point. There's a horned devil at level 4. Reason for charging? He's a barbarian.
Oh no!